This one is a Patreon vote winner and the theme is crime, and it makes total sense because this song is criminally awesome. Yeah, I did it.
We got some dirty deeds done dirt cheap, that's what we got.
Oh, so much energy. That's really interesting, actually. So interesting.
What you gotta do. Pick up the phone, I'm always on. Call me anytime. 2-3-6-2-5-3-6. I need a night override. Come on.
I'm gonna go and listen into that amazing chorus. There's such an amazing lift and build throughout. What I love in this is that the audience, this amazing Argentinian audience, are singing along with the riff at the start. And there is something very simple about this song. There's that simple driving beat in the drums, which is great for stadiums. It really cuts through, and sometimes when things are a little bit muddy, when there's a lot of complexity, it can get lost in a stadium environment. So this is the perfect band for that. It's kind of a sad story, but it's a really wonderful story as to why he became the singer of AC/DC. Of course, the original singer was Bon Scott, and Bon Scott passed away in 1980. And Bon Scott also was a little bit cleaner than these vocals here, but he loved a bit of a raspy vocal and was a massive fan of Little Richard. Side note, I don't know another artist that so many other artists cite as an influence. Little Richard is amazing. And the first time that the rest of the band had heard about Brian Johnson was from Bon Scott. He said that he found this amazing singer who sounded like Little Richard, who was this Geordie guy. In fact, he was in the band, Geordie. So when Bon Scott passed away, the rest of the band were like, we should find that guy. And they did. They went all the way to Newcastle and they auditioned Brian Johnson. And the rest is history. And now we've got this amazing, energetic, very raspy performance. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute. Is it natural? Is it not? That is a question.
Some dirty deeds done dirt cheap, that's what we got.
It shows how iconic the riff is that the audience sing along with that. It's wild, the audience. I would so love to be there. So right.
Graduate when nothing is bad. Here's what you gotta do. Pick up the phone, I'm always on. Call me anytime. 2-3-6-2-5-3-6. I need a night override. Come on. Dirty deeds, done dirt cheap. Dirty deeds, done dirt cheap. Now, dirty deeds, done dirt cheap. Come on. Dirty deeds, let me hear ya. Dirty deeds, you got
Okay. So there's a few different things going on. Why does his voice sound so distinctive and quite so raspy? Is it technique? Is that just how his voice sounds? If you listen to his voice in interviews now, it is really raspy.
I guess it was just this wonderful moment when, you know, the stars align or something like that.
Well, then you must have done a pretty good audition.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I remember I sang Tina Turner's Nutbush City Limits, and they had to learn it. Like, what the hell? But it was wonderful.
So there's obviously an element of it being natural. However, if you listen to his voice when he was in Geordie back in the day, his voice, although having a little raspy edge, was a lot cleaner.
Well, it's too late now for us to speak of changes.
It's beautiful. It actually reminds me of Bon Scott's voice in the studio version of this song. Brian Johnson has sung with a raspy style throughout his life. So I think there is a partial element of technique there. You can hear it coming in and out in Geordie. He's choosing when to put it on and take it off. But now I don't think that he has the choice so much. One of the things that has been happening throughout his entire life is that he was a smoker. And if you want to find out a little bit more about that, I did a whole video about Miley Cyrus and what's happened to her voice and why her voice has become raspy. And it's actually potentially for a similar reason. But there is also a third reason. So in the year that this was recorded, Brian Johnson was diagnosed with Barrett's syndrome. And that's where the lining of the esophagus becomes inflamed and damaged. And the reason people get Barrett's syndrome is from a long-term issue with acid reflux. And acid reflux, many of us will have had that. It's where acid comes up from the stomach and often burns the vocal cords or burns the esophagus. You might have woken up in the morning with a feeling of burning, maybe here or in your throat. And it happens to a lot of people. It's happened to me. Now, of course, if you get acid on your vocal cords, they're likely to swell, they might become a little bit asymmetrical, and that might cause a raspy sound. So acid reflux could have been part of what makes that raspy tone. And we can pathologize all of this, but actually what the most important thing is that he is adapting to his new voice, his voice that has changed throughout the years, through aging as well. And he's using it to amazing effect and with great technique at the same time. You can really hear it on his speaking, right? On those higher notes, you're getting a lot of higher frequencies, and it sounds like it's almost, perhaps even totally false chord at that point. I'm not sure. And that might be taking some pressure off the vocal cords at certain points. It's difficult to know unless you scope him, put a scope down his throat. But it's interesting to hear how he's finding his way around this voice that now perhaps needs something a little bit different than the average voice needs. So cool. On that Let Me Hear You, right? Really cool. Okay, I want to hear this epic guitar solo, but before we get into this, there's a couple of things happening. His mic is really close, so he doesn't need to sing really, really loud, and that's something that's really important for especially rock singers. We feel like we often have to be loud in order to create something that really punches through. But you don't. You have a microphone, or most of us work with microphones now. So you can sing fairly quiet and let it do the work for you. He also has fantastic breath support. Now that raspy voice probably means that there's some breath leaking through. Often our vocal cords close fully, and that kind of gives us a bit of pressure to stop the air. It makes it a little bit easier for us. And as that becomes breathier, that becomes a little bit harder. You have to control your diaphragm, control your rib cage, all your intercostal muscles, which are the muscles in between your ribs, a little bit more. And he's doing that really well while just driving around stage. One of the things that I see is that he stops his breath very, very suddenly to create a very dead stop at the end of each note. So he's able to drive it and then be like, nope, I am going to stop here. Because when we speak, we just speak until we've got rid of most of our breath, and then we breathe in. Singing isn't necessarily like that. You might get halfway through a breath, breathe in to top up, and then continue on, dependent on your song. Here we go. So this is Angus Young.
Keeps a nagging at you night and day. Enough to drive you nuts.
I love a lot of his phrasing. It's not very even. There's a lot of sliding going on, and that makes it really bluesy. Na 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 na. There's these little grace notes that hop up to each note, and it's less defined than that. It's more fluid, but that makes it feel bluesy and very kind of stylish. And adding these little like ahs onto the end of notes and things like that, I just love it. It's playful. It's really playful.
If you got a lady and you wanna go, but you ain't got the go.
I love this bit.
Keeps a nagging at you night and day. Enough to drive you nuts.
Driving nuts.
It's time you made a stand.
He's a great performer, isn't he?
I'm happy to be your bad dog man. Come on. Dirty deeds. Dirty deeds. Wow, dirty deeds. Come on. What you say?
What you say?
I can't hear. Concrete shoes, cyanide, TNT,
It's so interesting.
neckties, high voltage, round dirty.
This really makes sense to me if you understand where the dirty deeds done dirt cheap comes from. And it comes from a cartoon called Beanie and Cecil. I had never heard of this before, but apparently it had this character in it called Dishonest John, and he carried a business card that read "Dirty deeds done dirt cheap, holidays, Sundays and special rates." And Angus Young used to watch this as a kid, and that song was about it. And this kind of feels theatrical, and I can imagine that character singing this. They should have done a movie with this song. Done dirt cheap. It's so theatrical version of crime, I suppose.
Concrete shoes, TNT, contracts,
He's such a good performer.
high voltage, round dirty. Come on, everybody say, round dirty.
He's still able to get to those higher notes as well. We're gonna go way back. I want to have a listen to this one bit, and I have a story to tell you about this, which is really weird and really funny.
What's on? Call me anytime. 220.
Okay, that number there, 362436, and it used to be hey, and people used to mistake it for 8. And I think this is why he's changed it to O in this version. They got sued for that because it turned out that this number was actually someone's number. This meant that poor Marilyn and Norman White got hundreds and hundreds of prank calls. They tried to sue them for $250,000, but luckily for AC/DC, the judge ruled that it was a mistake and that they hadn't used their number on purpose.
Cyanide, TNT,
I love that TNT.
contracts, neckties, high voltage,
High voltage!
round dirty.
I love it.
Come on,
Look at evil villain.
everybody say,
Done dirt cheap.
round dirty. Come on, everybody.
Oh my goodness. It hurts my cheeks. Wow. Woo! Oh, it was so much fun. There's something so wonderful about this band because you just get the impression that they're enjoying themselves to the best of their ability throughout, and they just love being on stage, and therefore we as an audience just love watching them. It's beautiful. Before you go, I have just released my very own album, Fable. There are a few songs here on YouTube, some on Spotify, and the whole album is available on my website, bethroars.com. I would love if you go and check it out. I'm really proud of it. You are listening to some of it now underneath this. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.